thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, fantasy, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamite, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Monday, March 25th, you guys. That's right. Monday, the most important day of the weekend. It's March 25th, and today is National Medal of Honor Day. Shout out to all those veterans that made the ultimate sacrifice and received the Medal of Honor. It's also Tolkien Reading Day and National Lobster Newburgh Day, Rico.
Shout out to the Hobbit, man.
Oh, boy.
JR. Oh, man. You don't know nothing about that?
Yeah, shout out to the little people, I guess. Okay. Thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look down below on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday. And today we are only on YouTube because I am steering this ship. But nonetheless, we are going to roll right into, that's right, oh yeah, the dope dad himself, who thought he had a green day, but apparently not anymore. That's right, it is none other than the dope dad himself, repositioning himself, Mr. Rico Lamite.
God damn it, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it.
Yep. Don't worry, you can use your green screen tomorrow.
Let me sink into this shit.
I bet.
God damn it. All right. I'm still feeling great, even though I had to, get myself together. Because it's Monday, and I'm ready to follow this money. So High at 9 News' Yarrow Kubrin reported earlier this month on newly released Pew data showing 8 in 10 Americans now having a dispensary in their homes, in their home counties, and shop clusters in legal states bordering illegal states. Benzinga's Nicolas Jose Rodriguez then dove a bit deeper into Pew's analysis, finding cannabis dispensaries now outnumber McDonald's restaurant locations across America, with Oklahoma clocking in the most pot shops per capita. This morning, Abby Higginbottom looked further into it, explaining the recent surge that has led to the establishment of nearly 15,000 cannabis dispensaries nationwide, outstripping the approximate 13,500 McDonald's locations in 2023. To find answers, she spoke with Joe Lustberg, managing partner at Upwise Capital. His response: location, location, location. It's all about location and good capitalization. He told Benzinga, stressing the role of retail in the cannabis ecosystem, especially as cultivators and processors seek viable outlets for their products. Lustberg also spoke about the early admission of multi-state operators, the burgeoning illicit market, and excessive taxes on primary obstacles. Having a THC tax is absolutely absurd, he said, pointing out the competitive disadvantage legal operators face against the illicit market's sophisticated offerings, which often mirror legal retail products in appearance and quality. A substantial portion of illegal cannabis in New York, for instance, originates from California, suggesting that curtailing the supply chain could be pivotal in combating unauthorized sales. As the U.S. cannabis industry continues to outpace traditional fast food giants in its footprint, The challenges of taxation, regulation, and market competition remain at the forefront. Stakeholders like Lusberg advocate for a balanced approach, recognizing the potential of retail sector to drive the industry's future while calling for reforms to address the existing bottlenecks of impeding growth. Starbucks' 15,873 locations ranks it America's second most populous franchise, not far out of reach for dispensaries. Maybe they will eclipse the caffeine giant as soon as this year. So, my question, with the growing physical presence of cannabis retail in America, right? So, it's becoming harder and harder to deny. And mainstream real estate market and analysts are now calling for cannabis retail as potentially future major investment play that could lessen the blowback from rapidly declining traditional office space portfolios. So if you've been following the money like I have, you've noticed big pharma, big alcohol, big tech, big tobacco, and now big real estate are all publicly salivating over cannabis's mainstream investment potential. So one has to think, how much time do we have left until the powers that be just say fuck it and legalize? Enrico Lamite, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. Let's talk about it. What do y'all think?
I mean, I think McDonald's is a terrible comparison to make in regards with when we're counting numbers of dispensaries.
Why?
I just don't think it's a realistic measurement. I think Starbucks is much more measurable in relation to than McDonald's.
We're just talking about numbers.
I'm just talking about numbers too.
It was not comparison. The comparison is just straight numbers. They're not saying that it is you want to call like a McDonald's a dispensary. They're just talking about like real estate numbers.
Let me tell you about real estate, because Yarrow knows a thing or two about this
Yeah,
real
I was gonna
estate,
say,
and
let's
McDonald's
talk about
actually owns all their real estate, which is the exact opposite of every single cannabis dispensary. How about that, Rico?
That's smart right there.
Yeah, well, this is what I wanted to ask Yarrow about. It is why I mentioned Yarrow in my story.
Mm-hmm.
We have the real estate guru himself
Mm-hmm.
on with us. What do you think about this analysis? Do you think it is a fair analysis? And what do you think this means for the future, in the near future, as we continue to follow this money, Yarrow?
I think both Starbucks and McDonald's are good examples of real estate companies masquerading as CPG
Yes.
companies,
Right.
and separate from whether they rent or they own. Though the lens through which that business has been scaled has been definitely focused on choosing retail locations to support the expansion of those brands, and dispensaries don't have the velocity, the economies of scale, the brand awareness that a McDonald's or a Starbucks has. It's still a very wide open field. And anytime we try to compare something nationally, we're not really comparing something nationally. We're aggregating all of these sub-markets. But cannabis, like coffee, and it is going to be about convenience in no small measure. It's going to be about convenience, and so thinking about this through the real estate lens is never going to hurt any entrepreneur. And people have made a lot of money on cannabis real estate for a very long time, so that's not anything new. As long as we have these very restrictive zoning and setback requirements, we'll continue to see real estate bubbles based on the limited inventory that'll qualify for retail locations. But at its core, dispensaries are commercial real estate, just like McDonald's and just like Starbucks. And we all know that it's really about the convenience to the customer. And so, people say, I want to do a luxury brand. In my mind, luxury is convenience. In my mind, convenience is everything. And what is the point of the destigmatized and regulated industry if not for convenience? If not for you're not having to meet your plug in the gas station parking lot at 8 p.m. on a Sunday night to get the new. So, I just I could say the same thing over and over and over, right? The two things that are holding back the regulated industry in the United States. Well,
Safe
top
banking.
top two are lack of access to retail and burdensome tax structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yeah, safe banking has not stopped growth at all, Jason. It's continued to grow both on the illegal and illegal side. So I think
It
that's
hasn't grown at a rate of what it could grow at, though, Rico. It's being
You
stifled.
don't know that.
I do know
You
that.
don't know that.
I
No, you
100% know
don't.
that.
No, you don't,
Yeah, I do.
because it didn't happen.
It's
It didn't
true.
happen. So it's a
I
hypothetical.
100% know that.
There's a hypothetical, and it's continued to grow exponentially, and despite problems with banking. And we just had a story, was it 2 weeks ago, that analyzed exactly what you're saying, not to exist. Period.
That-
It does not matter. Like safe banking has not really been that
Whoever's
much of a
analysis you were
benefit.
analyzing is wrong.
Okay, I'll bring it up and I'll bring that back to the forefront. But safe banking has not really been as much of an impediment as people thought it would be, because the biggest cannabis firms continue to expand. They continue to gobble up stuff, and then regional players continue to grow as well.
And all I'm saying is if safe banking had passed, they would be growing at a much faster rate.
Not necessarily. Like you don't know because it didn't happen. And if safe banking passed way back, let's say 2 years, 3 years, let's say 7 years ago, it'd be a totally different market. Who knows what would have happened to social equity? Who knows what would have happened to interstate commerce? Like nobody knows.
Interstate commerce, they wouldn't have had any mechanism to initiate interstate commerce, so safe banking wouldn't have affected that
We
at
don't
all.
know that.
I do
We
know
don't know
that.
that.
Well, let's talk about safe banking for a second. The cannabis industry has a storied history of hitching our caboose to trains that might not ever get out of the station.
Right.
And the question about what the impact of safe banking will be or would have been is a fantastic opportunity for the two of you to not agree with each other and for no one to be able to prove their point. And
No. You just proved my point because it didn't happen. It never got passed. So we
And
can't speak in hypotheticals like it did.
And if we're gonna jump off into the deep end of the geeky policy pool on a Monday morning,
Yeah,
allow
baby.
me to put on my water wings and get right down to it.
His little floaties.
The biggest
Pins and gills, baby.
Yeah.
that's actually my septic hip hop name is Little Floaties.
Little floaties.
Hey,
Floaty.
hey,
Little floater.
you can make the money. I'd rather see the affluent. Okay, never mind. That was a dad grade pun. But anyway, the thing about cannabis banking is for a really long time there's been cannabis banking, and one of the biggest myths the industry has continued to perpetuate is this notion that that cannabis operators couldn't get cannabis bank accounts, and that's just hasn't been accurate for years and years and years and years and years. The problem with cannabis banking is the cost of cannabis banking, and as we've seen more cannabis banking options available to cannabis operators, we've seen what we see with most things, which is costs coming down. But the biggest cost in cannabis banking is the know your customer and anti-money laundering requirements that require the filing of all these suspicious activity reports based on the way that cannabis bank accounts are used, deposits are inputted, et cetera, and changing the requirements for suspicious activity reports doesn't require a change in the law from Congress and could be enacted through the executive branch without any changes to the law. So if we wanted to make cannabis banking less expensive to the cannabis operator and therefore less of a burden on this industry, it could be done without the passage of any law, just by changing the suspicious activity report requirements and therefore reducing the cost ultimately that is borne on the back of not just the cannabis operator, but the cannabis customer. So I think what I would say is, separate from this dueling notion of is safe banking going to be very, very effective or is it not important at all? The truth is safe banking doesn't need to happen in order for cannabis banking to be much less expensive. And we still haven't seen that. We haven't seen that under this president. And I don't know if we'll see it under any president who gets elected at this next election cycle, because what they've done a really good job of, and the they being the collective they, the body of people who like to summarize problems but do very little about them, is they've done a really good job of summarizing the problems, pointing out that their hands are tied. Oy vey, I would have done more. I could have done more. We're doing more. Hey, by the way, 13,000 people were affected because we are pardoning federal possession. And by the way, you might be able to get a little certificate.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end
It's
of the
like a
day,
participation ribbon.
it's like I have boogers that are more glittery than that certificate is. Like, that's terrible. It's nothing. It's a nothing burger. It's a joke. So at the end of the day, we don't need the passage of safe banking in order for the federal government to be more accommodating of this industry that still is illegal according to their rules. We don't need it.
Yep. And Yarrow, the reason that your boogers are so glittery, it's because of your lighting. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
I thought because he was on that. I thought because he's on that Cannabis.
It's because
Cannabis.
I went to
Cannabis.
Hey!
About Mondays.
Yeah, we'll
Please
be
don't
right
snort
back.
cannabis.
We're going to be right back, guys.
Get ready for the 20-year anniversary celebration of the Emerald Cup. The Emerald Cup will be held at the Henry J. Kaiser Center for the Arts in downtown Oakland, August 17th and 18th. Get your tickets now for best pricing. Cannabis categories include flower, pre-rolls, solventless concentrates, solvent concentrates, cartridges, edibles, topicals, tinctures, and alternative cannabinoids. So enter early for your chance to be a winner at the 20-year anniversary Emerald Cup competition.
There we go. Oh, yeah, and we're back, Rico. We are back.
Oh, yeah, y'all. Y'all know who it is up next. It's the High at 9 News head honcho, the highest Republican in every room, but also a man of what ifs. What if Donald Trump actually won? What
he
if?
did.
You have a story for us this morning.
Oh, you know I do.
We got for us Jason back.
Oh, yeah. Good morning. Good morning, Rico and everybody. Happy Monday, everybody. You know, it is Monday, the most important day of the week. But I'll tell you what, a California bill would roll back marijuana employment protections for law enforcement jobs, you guys, and has every law enforcement officer shivering in their boots that they're not going to pass their drug test now. A California bill that was introduced last month as a minor technical fix to an existing law protecting workers from employment discrimination over legal marijuana use was subsequently amended in committee this week with new section that would roll back the protections for various categories of workers, including those in law enforcement, coroners' offices, and animal control, you guys. Under two pieces of legislation signed into law in 2022 and 2023, California employers are now prohibited from asking job applicants about past cannabis use, and most are barred from penalizing employees over lawful use of marijuana outside of the job. The newly amended bill, SB 1264, sponsored by Senator Shannon Grove, Republican, would remove those protections for employees in sworn or non-sworn positions within law enforcement agencies who have or would have functions or activities related to the following 9 things, you guys. Number 1, the apprehension, incarceration, or correction of criminal offenders. 2, civil enforcement matters. 3, dispatch and other public safety communications. 4, evidence gathering and processing. 5, law enforcement records. 6, animal control. 7, community service duties. 8, public administrator or public guardian duties. And finally, number 9, coroner functions. The proposed change comes just months after the Commission of Peace Officer Standards and Training removed questions about marijuana from police job application forms, and several forms, the commission said at the time, were modified to remove inquiries about candidates' prior cannabis use. Well, Grove amendments were adopted on Tuesday, and the legislation currently sits before the Senate Rules Committee. Both employment protection laws took effect on January 1st of this year, with certain exceptions. In quotes, it is unlawful for an employer to request information from an applicant or employment relating to the applicant's prior use of cannabis. End quote, one of them says. And the separate complementary legislation that Governor Gavin Newsom signed in 2022 says it is unlawful for employers to discriminate against a person in hiring, termination, or any term or condition of employment, or otherwise penalizing a person if the discrimination is based upon off-duty marijuana use or drug tests that reveal cannabinoid metabolites. The laws already contain exceptions for the policy for workers in the building and construction trades, as well as those that require federal background checks and security clearances. The new amendment would extend the exemptions to include various law enforcement functions, and cannabis-related employment practices have been a major topic across the country amid the marijuana legalization movement. As marijuana legalization began to take effect in Ohio last year, for example, Cleveland Mayor Justin M. Dibb, Democrat, announced that the city has modernized its drug testing policies for applicants for city jobs, eliminating antiquated language around pre-employment marijuana testing that has previously hindered hiring efforts, he says. Washington, D.C. law went into effect in July that bans most private workplaces from firing or otherwise punishing employees for marijuana use during non-work hours. And Michigan officials approved changes to the state's employment policy over the summer, making it so applicants for most government jobs will no longer be subject to pre-employment drug testing for marijuana. New York also provides broader employment protections for adults who legally use cannabis during off hours and away from work. And meanwhile, in California, a poll released last month by state regulators found that 62% of adults in the state believe the legalization law is having a positive impact on even greater percentage than actually voted to enact the reform through the ballot in 2016. The poll also showed that 86% of adults consider it important to shop for marijuana at legal retailers as opposed to the underground market, and a key objective for officials as the state works to combat illicit sales. And another 72% of respondents said that consumers hold some responsibility to seek out licensed cannabis shops for their products. But because individual jurisdictions are able to opt out of allowing marijuana businesses, that's not always simple. And the poll also found that 85% of people who live in an opt-out area either mistakenly believed retailers were permitted or were unfamiliar with their local laws. The poll, released 1 week after California regulators and the DCC rolled out new marijuana database that's meant to help consumers, stakeholders, and lawmakers better understand industry trends, including monthly sales data and information about cannabis licenses. And the DCC separately released another online tool in 2022 that allows people to view an interactive map showing where marijuana businesses are permitted and where they are blocked from opening throughout the state. Meanwhile, Newsom has pledged to continue working to strengthen the state's marijuana market. In January, he proposed to help close an overall government budgetary deficit by borrowing $100 million from Cannabis Tax Fund designated for law enforcement and other public safety initiatives. The California legislature is also looking into ways to build the state's cannabis market while exploring other drug policy reforms dealing with issues such as psychedelics. Assembly member Matt Haney, Democrat, is renewing his push to legalize cannabis cafes in the state with a recently introduced bill and plans to work with the governor and regulators to address concerns that resulted in the last version being vetoed. And also, bipartisan California lawmakers recently introduced a new bill to legalize psychedelic service centers where adults 21 and older could access psilocybin, MDMA, mescaline, and DMT in a supervised environment with trained facilitators. The Republican Assembly sponsor of that legislation is also behind a separate psychedelics bill focused on promoting research and creating a framework for the possibility of regulated therapeutic access that has already moved through Assembly this year with unanimous support, you guys. Well, what do you guys think about this? The state trying to go back on letting cops be able to smoke off duty. I have questions, and does that actually really make us safer? I don't know. This is Jason Beck for the High at Night News. What do y'all think about this? You're on mute, Rico.
Safe banking would fix this too.
Safe banking would fix this. You're right. Very cute. Very cute, Rico. Very, very cute. Very cute. I feel bad for all these cops. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
I'm often confronted on this show I walk around living my life, thinking my thoughts, pondering the things I do, and this story again just confronts me with the reality of we be living about 25 years behind where I think we're living when I'm walking around in the park. All of this issue just like common sense. Cannabis stays in your system so long because it's tied to the endocannabinoid system and it's stored in the fat in your body. I haven't come up with a realistic drug test to prove if you're actually high on the job or not. Well as not being able to find really too many metrics showing that being high on the job has a lot of negative effects.
I feel bad. I feel bad for all these cops that like all of a sudden thought they could smoke weed, and now all of a sudden they're trying to roll that back, and now they're all going to piss dirty and probably lose their jobs.
Drink a lot of pickle juice, officers. Drink a lot of pickle juice.
I thought cranberry juice worked for that. Pickle juice?
I think really any kind of weird juice and too much of it is going to flush you out pretty.
Any type of weird juice, huh?
Yeah, vinegar's great for you.
Interesting analogy right there, Matthew St. Germain. Any type of interesting juice. What do you think about this, Rico? You drink interesting juice?
I like cold press. I'm on some cold press shit right now.
You're on some cold press juice? Cute.
Yeah, some cold press. That's my go-to these days, cold press.
What about grapefruit juice?
I surprisingly like grapefruit juice.
I've never liked it. I don't understand people that can eat that shit.
I think my palate has evolved as I've gotten older, and I actually like grapefruit juice.
It pairs well with vodka.
It pairs well with vodka. Oh, the lushes come out.
Yeah,
there we go.
Man. It's like, yeah, you can mix it with shit, but also, yeah, just like a little, like a little pick me up in the morning, a little citrusy pick me up. I'm not really down for like the sugary stuff anymore. I don't know, just I've evolved, so.
You have evolved.
Back to the article. I think it's incredibly disappointing that police officers who want to conform with the laws of the state they reside in
Right.
are not able to do that as well as serve their communities. I think, for the most part, being a cop is a thankless job. Nobody appreciates them until you need one. And you always got somebody telling you about how their taxes pay your salary. And most of them are underappreciated and undercompensated. And so the idea that we would limit people who want to serve because of their off-duty state lawful activity is incredibly disappointing. I
want to come in with an elbow off the top rope on all this police bullshit. All right, you guys. 2001, CIA and George Bush and others created a gigantic tarot-based psyop against us with the destruction of the Twin Towers. All of a sudden, the anti-war, anti-imperialist, anti-corporate, anti-banking movement became support the troops, buy an American flag from China, and wave it around. Here's the deal about the cops. The police in America were created as a task force to return runaway slaves, i.e. property, to their owners. Police in America were created as a way to ensure class stratification by protecting the rights of property owners, and that's what they continue to do. They protect the rights of property owners against everyone else. The sheriff was invented in Europe, and the commons were taken from everybody. It used to be that everybody had right to all of the public land. You could fish on it, you could farm on it, you could harvest whatever you wanted from it, provided that you didn't overuse the resources. In the early Middle Ages, the aristocracy of all of Europe took away the commons and gained ownership of it, and then began to give them to their dukes and barons and knights, creating further class stratification in the serf system. Sheriff was created to make sure that if you were hungry and couldn't feed your family, you didn't go on the land that used to belong to your entire tribe and area for millennia and hunt a deer or a pheasant or fish in the brook to feed your family. And until we really start looking at why these institutions were created and who they actually serve, I hate hearing this shit. And it's not that I think most people who go into these services, I was a firefighter. I went into firefighting to help people. I think a lot of people who go into the police services or who join the armed forces are hoodwinked. They are trying to do a good thing. I think they are good people with good hearts that wish to serve their community. And their good intentions and their goodwill is then funneled to organizations that were literally created to be a boot on the neck of the average person. This is the first time I smoke weed in a minute in the morning, so I might be a little radical. I love you guys.
Oh, just a little.
What he said.
Little radical.
What he said.
Yeah.
What he said.
I already knew you were gonna chime in on that one, Rico. He was beating your drum.
Like me and MSG like frequently be on the same frequency. You know what I'm saying?
You and I both read a lot of history books in school, I think. And
Yeah,
that's
we
all I
actually
do with a
learned.
lot of this shit is instead of like looking at what the TV says, support the troops. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Let me look back and see what the troops are doing. Let me look how the troops are formed. Let me look at the original mission of this country. Let me look at the founding of this country. And there's a through line that goes back several thousand years to the relation of property, class stratification, and the will of the few to hoard everything over the many. And that's a much more important topic or tagline. It doesn't really fit like on a T-shirt like "Save the Troops," but the thing is, the end creation of actually understanding the history of our planet and our society is the ability to actually work towards something we all want and need. If we just rock around saying "Save the Troops" and they're secretly in Syria murdering people, and they're secretly in Ukraine training people for a proxy war against Russia, and they're all over, they're just dribbled all over the Middle East and Europe to continue our resource theft, like, really be supporting those troops, or should we maybe even repurpose that to like support the troops by bringing them the fuck home?
I'm all for bringing the troops home. I'm all for that.
Yeah, let's support the troops by having them build bridges in America and fix the roads in America.
Bring back the Army Corps of Engineers and let's get our infrastructure back again. I'm all about that.
Thank you.
I'm all in support of that. I'm all in support of that. 100%. We need to rebuild America. This place is falling apart everywhere I go. It's really sad and shameful, and makes me really sad when I see all of it.
You know, it'd be crazy if we did build back better, but
we'll build back better once Trump's back in office. But
that was shot down too. But 9:30. Love y'all.
You're so cute, so cute, so cute. We're gonna roll right into the Sebastopol Sage. Oh, where did he go? Did he leave? Oh, there's Rico dropping. And nonetheless, we're going to roll right into the Sebastopol Sage, who does cannabis. He does real estate. And every now and again, he does cannabis real estate because he believes in protecting the real estate class. That's right, it's none other than Mr. Yarrow D. Kubrin. Yeah!
Oh, my goodness. It's not an introduction. It's a hazing. And if you can't tell the difference, you're on the wrong show.
Mm-hmm.
It's a friendly roasting.
Yes.
Good morning. This is Yarrow Kubrin, Monday, March 25th, 9:32 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here. High at 9 News. Thank my esteemed co-guests, co-panelists. My article for you today is, without further ado, about. Here we go.
You all right?
No. I'm getting all bipartisanal.
Okay.
Bipartisanal. Right. My article today is about a bipartisan coalition of attorneys. So, without further ado, let me read this. Bipartisan coalition of 21 attorney generals is urging Congress to address what they perceive as a public health and safety crisis stemming from ambiguities in federal hemp policy. They argue that the 2018 federal farm bill, which legalizes low THC hemp, inadvertently created a loophole allowing intoxicating products derived from hemp extracts. These products, such as Delta 8 THC and Delta 10 THC, have sparked a gray market worth an estimated $28 billion, according to the letter. The letter calls for amending the definition of hemp to close this intoxicants loophole and reaffirm states' rights to regulate cannabinoids and hemp derivatives. However, it does not propose specific policy solutions. The attorneys general, led by Todd Rockett and Tim Griffin, emphasized concerns about the proliferation of products appealing to children and young people. In response, some in the hemp industry criticized the letter for lacking clarity and potentially harming farmers and manufacturers. They argue that redefining hemp could lead to unintended consequences and advocate for FDA regulation of all hemp products to ensure safety. Others suggest regulating intoxicating hemp products similar to alcohol with measures such as age restrictions and proper labeling. The issue of hemp-derived intoxicants has led to varying approaches at the state level. Some states with legal recreational marijuana have attempted to ban Delta 8, while others have integrated it into their regulatory framework. In states with legal recreational marijuana, policies regarding Delta 8 vary, with some allowing its sale to adults and others seeking to ban it. Legal battles, such as one in Arkansas, highlight the complexities surrounding hemp regulation. This is Yarrow Coburn, High at 9 News. I'd like to know what my other guests have to say about this article.
Well, I mean, I hear they definitely are going to take a look at this in this new version of the Farm Bill. And one of the things I hear that they're talking about doing is eliminating all psychoactive compounds from falling under the Farm Bill.
I'm not
Makes
mad
sense.
at it. There's this is the biggest problem in the industry right now.
Yeah.
Is this underregulated, intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids and the way in which it threatens the regulated industry more broadly, and the fact that we know it's a ticking time bomb. We know there's going to be some terrible outcome related to some minor getting hold of edibles that are not properly packaged or labeled, and what's going to happen. And it's not going to be the cannabinoids that kill somebody, but it might be the decisions they make while under a unintended heroic dose. And when that happens, regulators are going to have to overregulate to overcompensate, and that's not going to be the good of anybody.
You know, Yarrow, my last story deals with that a little bit today, so I can't wait for you to hear about that.
I mean, I'm inspired to see the operators that are fast enough to jump on this THC and are just blasting weed out via shipping. all
Bro,
over
you
the
can sell
country.
weed on the internet now with if it's THCA.
I'm sure it's totally. I'm sure it's going to get cut down eventually by some bill or some amendment or some change. But for myself, I just think that this is terrific. I love to see when people find the slack in the rules, when people find those little holes, cracks, and crevices they can get through for a moment.
I don't think it's a
And
little hole,
especially-
Matthew. I think it's a fucking big fucking gap you could drive a freaking Cadillac through or a diesel truck.
Currently it is, bro. Currently it is. But again, I think find the rules of the game, figure out how to play around them as much as you can. This is where you're not being immoral or unethical, selling some.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and Yarrow, to your point, there's been plenty of cases that we've even covered here on High at 9 that have talked about kids getting a hold of these different products and what happens when they get a hold of them, and then how their parents' reactions. They're so shocked that their kids are doing this. You know, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a different. I like to try to disagree a little bit, and we always keep the dish spicy with some MSG, and I want to just say that that while there may be loopholes, I don't consider it ethical for someone to sell products to someone under 18, and I truly believe that cannabinoids that are intoxicating need to be age restricted, and that aspect alone.
They are.
I would push back on that a little bit,
are.
Yarrow. I'd push back a little
doesn't
bit
make
on
sense.
that. The people that are selling these products, that are producing these products, are selling it to people that are 18 and over because they're selling it to retailers, and then those retailers are the ones that are selling it to the minors. So I would pose to say that there maybe needs to be more retail enforcement as opposed to product enforcement.
If you follow the throughput of your argument, it means that we should ban all liquor stores because some liquor stores also sell to minors. Right?
I mean, they might be.
Why don't we just?
They might be
why don't we
doing
just try
that
up
in
every
New York.
liquor store?
They might be trying to do that soon in New York.
The
'cause they
liquor
have a
store
big
down the
problem to clean
street
up.
sells to minors, bro. The liquor store down the street sells to minors all day.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard anybody be like, "We got to ban Coors, man. Kids are drinking."
Hey,
I mean, we should ban Coors because, with the exception of a hot day over 101, and unless you're on the water fishing, that's not really beer. I didn't say
You're
that. I didn't say that there shouldn't be retail outlets. What I said is I believe it's immoral for a manufacturer to make something and to take advantage of the lack of age-restricted limitations. And I
But
still
they're
believe
not
that.
age restricted though. That's the thing, is they're not age restricted. HCA is restricted 18.
Interesting.
You cut out. I didn't even hear you.
He said that they're cut out to 18 and over.
Yeah, THCA products are restricted to 18 and over.
Yeah, but that's only as good as the person that's standing behind the counter that's selling them.
No,
Matthew.
I agree. I agree. But I mean, we can start. Like I said, we can do the same logical throughput for alcohol, cigarettes, firearms,
and I'm not
and
sure
anything else you want to talk about.
I'm not sure
if the endpoint, if the endpoint is people under 18 getting it, and it's the manufacturer's fault, even they're requiring someone to be 18 to buy it, then we should eliminate this system. That eliminates alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and basically anything else that is for adults, because children are always getting it because there's always endpoints. There's always an adult, either somebody, a shopkeeper without ethics, like you talk about, Yarrow, and or an adult also without ethics who will buy something and then resell it to somebody who's under 18. Mm-hmm. I just don't see the logical throughput. I think all the time that we try to continue to legislate safety, it just makes more and more of a police state. We really have to realize, all of us as adults, is we have to take a breath. Mm-hmm. Realize there's no such thing as safety. Safety is a complete fucking. It's an illusion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You could live in a fort with flamethrowers and constant armed security, and you could still be destroyed by a plasma wave from the sun or an asteroid from outer space. And so many people wish to be safe. It's the reason gurus and religions and authority systems and Donald Trump have all thrived, because people are in a hurry to give away their power to some godman or some leader or some guru or some organization that says they have the answer, because they don't want to be faced with the fact that nobody knows who we are or where we are going in this ocean of chaos. You really have to be responsible for yourself. There's actually no really answers. You yourself are at the leading edge of the wave of time-space. And it's not a comfortable place to be. It's an actual reality, and more of us can grow up and look at that, begin to raise our children with our in our power, with our own mind and heart, ethics and will, or we act as intelligent people. The fear of society, we really, again, to circle this back to my original, what I was saying here is legislating behaviors and legislating these laws so people. The government can raise people's kids is not working, and it's resulting in a fascist police state. And I, for one, would like a lot more freedom and a lot more people
and on
responsibly navigate.
Yep. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We are going to be right back.
Oh, man, that was weird. Hey, you, America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California, with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
Oh, stop whatever you're doing and make sure that you hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And also, one last thing, make sure that you check out the shit show. Come on by the studio Friday, May 3rd. Head over to our website, www.cloudmedia.partners, to get your tickets, and we will see you there. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get yourself a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
That's right, baby. I'm Smoky Vanilla with my background in kinesiology. I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on athletes who have chronic pain or injury due to their sport, or the legends of the chronic in the game, baby.
Oh, yeah, you know what it is. We just stretched, and now we're gonna smoke, because you know what it is.
That's right. I love intuitively creating a session based on the individual I'm working with. We'll go through a few assessments, look at the past health history, injury, or anything that's still affecting you today, and create a customized session just for you. Let's go. Woo!
Oh, yes, that's right, and we're back. And coming up next, it is Mr. Matthew St. Germain, the immortal Count himself, who has been absent a couple days, but now is back. We're glad to have you back, Matthew. Welcome back. And coming up next from the 707 as well, it is none other than the Count himself, Mr. Matthew St. Germain.
Thank you. Polite thanks. Thanks, Jason Yarrow. First off, sorry if I'm the evil pro wrestler of psychedelic anarchism today. I'm not trying to be, but I just smoked a huge blunt for the first time Monday morning. Mm-hmm. Well, I've got a really exciting story, and this goes back to a lot of stuff we've discussed. A new study finds natural mushroom extract has better therapeutic effects than synthesized psilocybin. A new study shows that natural mushroom extracts may be more therapeutically effective than synthesized psilocybin.
Psilocybin.
It's actually psilocybin, but yeah.
Is it
which is
really?
widely used in, yeah, but both are fine. It's like all these, there's, it's like the scientific name and social leagues.
Got it.
Which is widely used in research investigating the medicinal potential of the psychedelic drug. Findings suggest that natural mushroom extracts may offer more potential applications for the treatment of serious mental health conditions such as depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and schizophrenia. The study, which was conducted by an interdisciplinary team of researchers from the University of Jerusalem's Hadassah Medical Center Brain Lab Center for Psychedelic Research, compared the effects of the natural and synthesized versions of psilocybin, compound primarily responsible for the psychoactive effects of magic mushrooms. My colleagues and I are very interested in the potential of psychedelics to serious treatment-resistant psychiatric disorders, study author Bernard Lehrer said. There are many anecdotal and clinical reports which suggest that extracts of psilocybin-containing mushrooms may have unique effects that are quantitatively different from straight chemical psilocybin, and also some preclinical studies point well. This observation has important clinical implications. He wanted to test it empirically in a laboratory study. In Western medicine, there has historically been a preference for isolating active compounds rather than utilizing extracts, primarily for the sake of gaining better control over dosages and anticipating known effects during treatment. The challenge with working with extracts lays in the inability in the past to consistently produce the extract product with a consistent compound profile. Contrastingly, ancient medicinal practices, particularly those attributing therapeutic benefits to psychedelic medicine, embrace the use of extracts or entire products, such as consuming the entire mushroom or ayahuasca, which is actually 2 plants and oftentimes several plants cooked and mixed together. Although Western medicine has long recognized the entourage effect associated with whole extracts, the significance of this approach has gained recent prominence. To conduct the study, the researchers compared the effects of a natural mushroom extract with those of the synthesized molecule in laboratory mice. Researchers assessed the behavioral effects and potential neuroplasticity used by both the compound and chemical, the head twitch response assay, a commonly employed method of studying the effect of psychedelics in mice. They're just watching them like shake their head and trip because they can't believe what they're seeing. The researchers showed that the mushroom extract demonstrated a stronger and more prolonged impact on synaptic plasticity, which could indicate the extract offers unique therapeutic benefits. Additionally, the metabolic analysis showed the distinct metabolic profiles between synthesized psilocybin and the extract suggested the mushroom extract has a more unique influence on oxidative stress and energy production pathway. So basically, what they're pointing to is what we're seeing and have always seen in cannabis, in mushrooms, in ayahuasca, in all of these natural products, is that instead of containing one molecule, they contain a plethora of molecules: alkaloids, thiols, terpenes, phytocannabinoids, esters, on and on and on and on. And all of these chemicals work together as programming code in your body, offer you the molecules you need to heal as well as the programming instructions. This is why so many of these compounds and chemicals are not okayed by the FDA, because the FDA only will okay single or a couple compounds through their clinical trials. Yarrow and Jason, I'd love you guys to jump in on this, and what do you think this points to, or how do you feel about this article?
Well, I mean, I agree with Anna's comments. Is like, wow, really? I'm surprised. The natural is better. Shocking. Like, but again, this, I mean, so if we look at this, there's half of the mushroom and psychedelic community that's going to view this as good news, and there's another half that's going to view this as terrible news, because half the community wants to keep it as it is, how like psychedelics are organic and, you know what I'm saying, from the earth and whatnot. And then you have the other side of psychedelics that wants to do all this research and really turn this all into a whole big cash grab, that wants to isolate these single compounds and make it into pharmaceutical-based medicines that they can push at all their whatever clinics they want to come up with the fancy name for, and and be able to just basically charge it to their insurance and whatnot. And the only, just like you said, the only way the FDA is going to do that if it's a single compound. So it looks like we're going to be back at square one again, like we just are with weed when it comes to how this is all going to go down.
Right. Well, you say it's not half of the community. It's like the psychedelic community, and then these same corporatist, capitalist, wealth and value extractors that have been through they've been through cannabis. You mean
the limousine liberals?
No, Jason. What I mean again are like the corporate capitalist, generational wealth, the NXers, the exit plan strategy folks. Those are the guys that come in, and what they do is they make these cash grab wealth expansion schemes where they basically get investors to put in a bunch of money. They kind of do a dog and pony show about losing all the money. They move on to the next opportunity, the next bubble, the next wavefront, and now it's psychedelics. They're doing the same thing. And now the reason they're doing this again is because psilocybin is unpatentable because it was discovered back in the early 20th century. So you can't patent it. So even if it becomes legal or mushrooms become legal, there's no gain. What you can do is you can take the psilocybin molecule and you can put another molecule on it to make it active in a different way, or in best case scenario, not change the activity or the toxicity, and have a different molecular structure. You can call that a different name. You can get a patent on it. And now you can funnel all of the money from the use of that drug into your pockets instead of just creating a drug to help people. And so all of these value extraction companies that have entered psychedelics are not anywhere near half or anything of the psychedelic world. What they are robber barons that are coming in to extract the value out of the psychedelic community by creating patented drugs that they can then funnel and protect all of the profits. And what we really need is to lobby the FDA to have a different process whereby natural plants and chemicals and admixtures can also go through a clinical trial process, shown safe, shown effective. Until that happens, we're kind of at the grips of these companies whose prime directive is to make money and not to kill people.
What do you think, Yarrow?
So one of the things that I liked about this article is it touched upon the ways in which the environment for cultivating mushrooms can affect the compounds that are in those mushrooms. And so the article says, quote, mushroom compounds are highly influenced by their growing environment, encompassing factors such as substrate composition, CO2 to O2 ratio, light exposure, temperature, and microbial surroundings. Despite these influences, controlled cultivation allows for the taming of mushrooms, enabling the production of a replicatable extract. And so what comes up for me is a couple things. The first is, gee, doesn't that sound a little bit like cannabis? And then the second thing that comes up for me is that in the beginning of understanding cannabinoids, THC was the thing. And so people were chasing THC. And so as our comprehension and our understanding of the complexity of all the cannabinoids has increased over time, we realize that THC isn't just the one thing. And I imagine we would see a similar dynamic or trend in newer nutraceutical and plant medicine scientific journeys, which is we identify one thing and we go, wow, that's the thing. And then we go, oh, wait, there's a bit more here. There's a lot more going on. There's a bit more to be understood. And so I think we're going to see that play itself out with mushrooms as medicine, and probably a lot of other plant-based medications as they sort of come into being considered a medicine. The other thing that comes up for me is this notion of like, how do we monetize Mother Nature? And I don't disagree with MSG here about part of the reason why people are trying to isolate these compounds or do one little unique thing to it is so that they can create barriers to entry in business and say that they patent something. And I think that's absolutely correct. The other complement to that thinking is this idea that because Mother Nature is so complex, because Mother Nature has so many variables that we can't solve for, and because we're at the beginning of understanding mushrooms as plant medicine, that if somebody can come up with a replicatable substance in a laboratory that they can treat and use over and over and over and test for controls and outcomes and create patient studies, that part of that desire to create something a little novel isn't necessarily around monetizing that as it is to say, well, if I can make this in a laboratory and it's consistent time and time again, and I'm solving for some of the variables that are created through mushroom production and the various inputs, does that give me a faster outcome to scientific grade study data? And so I think it's worth pointing out that some of that is not about just monetization as it is about limiting variables in a in a calculus equation, which is the scientific pursuit. If I can limit some variables, then I can test for a smaller group of variables, make the rest of those constants, and then come up with some statements or claims that are supportable by the information that's been created. So do I think that people are trying to profiteer and come up with something unique just so that they can create barriers to entry? Absolutely. But do I think that we're at the beginning of mushroom medicine and that we shouldn't, there might be 150 different things that come out of mushrooms that we didn't know about beyond the THC. And so I just think we're right at the beginning of all that. We don't have all of that information. None of these studies are saying that they're definitive or that they are like have these mic drop moments. And so we need to explore it like we explore a lot of other plant medicine. And let's not get it twisted. Plant medicine has been the basis for a lot of medicines for a long time. I mean, where do you think aspirin comes from? So it's not that cannabis is in any way unique or at the precipice of some new thinking around medicines and the development of medicines and their origin, or it being really about plant medicine to begin with. That is the way a lot of medicines have been developed. It's the way a lot of medicines will continue to be developed. And so we just need to conform our pursuit of knowledge and science, whether it's cannabis, whether it's psilocybin. And by the way, I don't know how you pronounce it, Matthew, but you grew up on a different side of the tracks than me. Like, y'all throw your pinky up when you drink the tea. We were using French's mustard. You were using Grey Poupon. We just call it psilocybin. I don't know what side of the tracks you're from. I want to be there. I want an invite. I don't golf at the same clubs as you. But whatever side of the street you're on, and the way that you're pronouncing psilocybin, that's where I want to be.
Yarrow.
I just hung out with enough doctors and scientists that were way smarter than me that were pronouncing it right, that I just kind of started pronouncing it right, because I started feeling as you were somewhat left out or out of the in group.
I don't care if you call it Gouda or Gouda, okay? It still tastes the same on a cheese cracker.
And just so you know, Yarrow, it's the other side of the vineyard. Just so you know, it's the other side of the vineyard. All right, you guys up there.
We literally are on opposite sides of a gigantic vineyard.
Exactly.
That is actually true.
Yep. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated.
Correct.
Yes, and we're back, you guys. We are back. So I have two stories for you left. You guys ready for this? The Federal Census Bureau updates marijuana tax revenue map, showing which states had the biggest increases and decreases last quarter. Since the U.S. Census Bureau first launched a map detailing the proportion of state revenue made up by marijuana tax money last fall, the agency has continued tracking the data, allowing further comparisons to be made over time. In the fourth quarter of 2023, for example, New York recorded about $14.8 million in excise tax on marijuana sales, marking up a comparatively slim 0.02%. Look at that, they're under the THC threshold, percent of the state's total tax revenue for the quarter. That's an increase, however, of 49% compared to the preceding quarter, an indication of potentially massive New York market still slowly getting off the ground after stores began opening there just over a year ago. Well, I'll tell you what, there's nothing is going that fast in New York, so I don't understand where you guys are going to get this money from, but whatever. In Colorado, meanwhile, the first U.S. state to open retail cannabis stores to adults in 2014, marijuana tax revenue comprised 1.23% of all the state's revenue and $61 million. That amounted to a 9.05% decrease from the previous quarter in the relatively mature marijuana market. Recent standouts in terms of change include Connecticut, which saw more than 150% increase in tax revenue between the most recent 2 quarters of available data, as well as Rhode Island and Washington, D.C. That later 2 jurisdictions each saw excise tax receipts fall by more than 44%. It's not clear from the national level census map to what extent individual state reporting practices might affect the quarter-to-quarter comparisons, and as far as how much each state's overall tax revenue stems from cannabis sales, those with the largest shares in Q4 of 2023 were Washington State with 1.37%, Alaska with 1.32%, Colorado 1.23%, and Montana with 1.09%. Those with the smallest proportions included Rhode Island with 0.10% and Pennsylvania 0.07% and New York 0.02%, Mississippi 0.01% and Louisiana with also 0.01%. The data now covers the third quarter of the fiscal year of 2021 through the fourth quarter of 2023 fiscal year, although the Bureau has said that sales data it reports for given quarterly typically reflects revenue that states collected on sales made during the prior quarter. While the revenue is just a small fraction of overall state tax revenues, the billions of dollars flowing into state coffers represent an outsized contribution from the sale of a single crop. In Illinois, revenue from the state's legal marijuana industry was $451.9 million the most recent full fiscal year, which ended June 30th. That's nearly 1.5 times the $316.3 million Illinois made in alcohol taxes during the same period. In fiscal year 2022, both Colorado and Washington received more tax revenue from legal cannabis than from alcohol or cigarettes. And while not every state with legal marijuana has consistently provided data for the Census Bureau's map, the project nevertheless represents the federal government's growing effort to account for the size and scope of the legal cannabis industry. Last September, before launching the interactive map, the agency published a report showing that legal cannabis states had collected more than $5.7 billion in marijuana tax revenue over an 18-month period, and it also recently updated its survey of private businesses to better capture marijuana-related economic activity. And this thing goes on and on and on. And if you want to read more about all of this economic activity, I encourage you to go over to our website to www.highat9news.com and see what they're talking about. Mr. Yarrow, what do you think about all this tax money going to all these states? And man, of course we knew New York was going to be low on that totem pole.
I mean, what's bumming me out is I'm looking at the map, the color-coded map, and I must not have great eyes anymore. Because I was wondering, is this California here? Is it in pink? Because when it talked about the
it's
states
in the red.
that have
It's
the
in the
overall,
red. It's got to be in the red because Gavin Newsom took $100 million from it.
Well, so what was challenging for me, and I will bite on that in a second, is that it talks about the states that have the greatest tax revenue contributions, and it says Washington, Alaska, Colorado, and Montana, and none of those were above 2%.
Well, I think Yarrow, they're meaning that it's all in comparison relative to the state's overall budget.
I mean, I thought it was total gross revenue collected by dollar amount, and so there's this big gap because the article doesn't include much about California, and California arguably has been the largest regulated cannabis economy in the country, if not the world. And so why is there not more? I was like, Ben, I know you wrote a great article, Ben, and thank you so much for your contributions to Cannabis News, Senor Adlin, but where's the California information? And so if it's not there, then it's not news, right? Because context matters. And so I don't see that. I see the cannabis excise sales tax quarterly revenue change, the color of change, the map, the color of change. And so why is California not leading this article? Why is there no statistics about California in this article? Why are they not anchoring some of the information about other states relative to California? And I'm sorry to be so geocentric, but no, I'm not. I mean, come on, let's get real for a second.
I know.
California is an incredibly important state, and if you are going to report sales data in the United States and you're not tethering it to California, or you're not using California as this contextual anchor point, then you're always going to get a thumbs down from me.
You know, and I almost feel like this article is kind of written in a skewed way for, you know, maybe the stock bros or whatnot, because a lot of those states that they're highlighting are those very limited market states that have a lot of MSOs in there, and so maybe this is just a big old puff piece trying to hype up people's stock numbers for the market.
Like I said, I mean, I just think that without that California information, the context that's missing from this article makes the rest of the information in this article suspect to me, because it doesn't have that incredibly important data point. And if you're going to report the top 4 highest states, and they're all under 2% of the total taxes collected, and then just because I am, I guess, a professional critic, at least for an hour a morning, couple days a week. The other thing that I think is challenging is they did year over year change in taxes, but I would have liked to have seen taxes assessed versus taxes collected. I think that would have been one of the more important statistics.
Hey,
that was crucial.
It might be because the state is still assessing taxes from years past, and so they don't have those numbers yet.
Not so much. I mean, we're coming into the second quarter of the next year, and so they have that sales data. And so taxes assessed versus taxes collected, that's the map I'd like to see in the next version of this article. And then talking about and contextualizing California, which the data is not in this article. Don't get me wrong, I love a color-coded map. I love me some maps. But without that information, I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah, I thought you loved some color too, right?
When they were doing the colors in light green and light purple, I was like,
yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, Yara, I'm going to roll into this last story so we can hit on and get on with our Monday, because it is the most important day of the week. And this is on your comment from earlier during your story, Yarrow. High on marijuana, a woman panics and jumps from her Uber rideshare on the I-96 highway, you guys. A woman high on marijuana panicked while in a rideshare and jumped out of the moving vehicle on I-96 near the I-94, state police said. The incident began around 4:45 p.m. on Saturday, March 24th, when a motorist called Detroit Regional Communication Center to report a crash on the I-96 involving a pedestrian. While state police were en route, the call was reported to be a kidnapping, with the victim, a 31-year-old Detroit woman, jumping from the vehicle. Witnesses reported that the woman jumped from the vehicle in the left lane of I-96. Then a rideshare driver called and said the woman jumped out of his vehicle because she did not like the route he was taking to downtown Detroit. The woman was taken to a hospital where she was alert and stable, state police said, and in a quote, during the interview, it was determined she was under the influence of marijuana and had anxiety because she saw a sign that said Port Huron and panicked, thinking that he was taking her somewhere else. State police shared that on Twitter or X. This woman, in a quote, this woman was very lucky she wasn't seriously hurt during the incident, state police Lieutenant Mike Shaw said. And the kidnapping investigation was closed as unfounded, with the woman being turned over to her family after all of this. Well, Yarrow, have you ever been so high in a Uber that all of a sudden you wanted to hop out on the freeway because you were mad at the driver took the wrong way?
No, that has never happened to me. That's not on my goals list. That's a real problem. I haven't heard of anybody doing this. This is really concerning for me. I'm not sure what the potency of this cannabis was. I'm not sure if that's just what she was on.
I don't know how they know she was on cannabis, and at the same time, this could have been some Delta 8 product or some other anything like that.
I mean,
it could have.
She said that she was on cannabis. I would like to see the toxicology report. I'd like to see the urinalysis or the blood test. My guess would be that somebody who jumps out of a vehicle said they were on cannabis because they didn't want to say they were on PCP. I mean, I have never heard of anybody jumping out of a moving vehicle by cannabis.
On the freeway. It must have been a slow day that day on the freeway.
I just, I'm wanting to be in there for that internal monologue, the minute and a half before the door was opened, like fuck this, this ride is really sucking here. What's going on? are those spiders on the back of my neck, or am I feeling my brain expanding? So I don't know what this person was on. I'm going to guess this is not cannabis news. This is the news of somebody on something else using cannabis as the excuse for the behavior.
Maybe she was on one of those psychedelics. What do you think? Maybe she just thought she saw that sign. Oh man, again, perception is reality, you guys.
I think she needs a little bit of help.
I mean, I've been in an Uber car and I've been frustrated that a driver took a certain route, or like I'll get frustrated if they're using like Google Maps over using Waze or stuff like that. But then again, I just have to sit back and just tell myself just to sit back and relax and just enjoy the ride. You're gonna get there.
I once had an Uber get us lost in the desert in Nevada, and so I have some Uber stories, but none of them have motivated me to want to put my body in harm's way because I was impatient with the process. So again, I don't think this person was just on cannabis.
That's when you were on your way to the bunny ranch, huh, Yarl?
No. No comment, Jason.
Oh,
no comment.
That's cute. Oh, man. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of High at 9 News. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show. Thank you to our audience tuning in daily, spending your time with us. Thank you, Yarrow, for coming in today. Matthew St. Germain joining us, and Rico. And thank you to all of our sponsors out there, and we will see you all tomorrow. Yarrow, you have anything you want to leave them with today?
Viewers, come back tomorrow morning. We're going to do it again, and it'll be all new, unique, and uncensored.
Yes, and Adam will be back. We'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great Monday, the top of your week, you guys.